Welcome to Perusing's Appraisers on Purpose. In this season, we journey through the realm of technology and connect with valuation and data analysis experts who are at the forefront of industry transformation. We dive deep into how technology is redefining asset analysis, identifying trends, and enhancing professional valuation skill sets. Join us as we meet with leading minds to discuss the revolutionary intersection of technology and traditional processes with our host, real estate investor, entrepreneur, and chief appraiser, Michael Hobbs.
Well, welcome back. We're so excited to have another just intriguing and influential guest here in this fantastic season. But before we can jump in, just need to remind you of the impact that you have. And that is definitely take the time to like this podcast on whatever medium you're listening to it on. And be prepared to hit the comments. A lot of great learnings, a lot of great life experiences are going to get shared. And with that, I'm so excited to reveal to you all that this episode's guest for Perusing's Appraisers on Purpose is Brenda Hicks. Brenda, thanks for joining us.
Well, gee, thanks for having me. This is kind of fun.
This is a lot of fun. We enjoy this a lot, and you know what we enjoy the most is the opening question, which is, were you born this way, or how did your life come to intersect with the valuation and appraisal professions?
Oh, my parents, I was like, not even a year old. They looked out in the crib, said, you know what? I think she has the makings of a commercial real estate appraiser.
That's it. Oh my gosh. Well, they just spoke your future.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, not so much. Okay.
Nah, no. I'll bet there are those people, because when we look at the appraisal profession, it is sort of a mentorship kind of thing. And so you do see, my father was an appraiser, and maybe even my grandfather was an appraiser. So I think that there's those. That certainly wasn't my path to it at all. Not even close. I think you and I had some conversations once.
Yes.
We could compare notes on how many different career paths we took, and maybe we should have stuck with one or two.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe not. So no, the way I got here was because I did so many different things on the way up. But in the end, it was really that I had recently gotten divorced. So I grew up in Detroit.
Yep. And
I got married at a very young age. And my husband came home one day, and we had carry-out pizzerias. At the time, there were two franchises that came out of the block at the same time in Michigan, and one we all know really, really well, Little Caesars.
Oh, yeah.
Recognized Little Caesars as a franchise. Yeah. And the other one that came out at the exact same time that didn't grow quite as big was Dino's Pizza.
Dino's,
so
okay.
We own 3 carry-out Dino's Pizza locations, franchises, and husband came home one day from meeting at the corporate headquarters and said, hey, I have this opportunity. How would you like to move to Tampa, Florida? Well, I got to tell you, I'd never heard of Tampa, Florida. Didn't know where Tampa, Florida was.
Detroit. I mean, come on.
Little girl from Detroit. I'd heard of this thing called Disney, and that's about all I knew. And at the time, I had a 6-week-old baby.
Wow.
And so we did it. We packed up and came to Tampa, Florida. And, so I was married for about 10 years. We had a good run with the restaurants. That was good. During most of that time, I had also really got into my dancing career. So I taught tap and jazz and ballet and tumbling, which was, that was my real love. Running the restaurants was easy. I could do everything from spin pizzas in the air to manage. We ended up opening up a 140-seat full restaurant as opposed to the carry-out things that we had.
Wow.
So it was kind of a busy time. Yeah, especially moving to a brand new city that you don't know anybody in. Everybody will tell you that my son, he was my firstborn, kind of grew up inside that restaurant. I don't know if anybody knows this when you buy mozzarella cheese, the most expensive thing you'll ever buy in a pizza or Italian restaurant, it comes in these big blocks, like almost a cinder block kind of a thing. And then you shred it yourself, at least
I didn't know that.
Back in the old days.
Yeah.
And so I would just put a blanket inside the big box that the cheese used to come in because it was the cleanest thing there because it was all wrapped in saran wrap. And, you know, our darling son just slept in boxes and blankets in the back seat of the restaurant. He teethed on pizza crust, and that's just the way the world was.
That's fair.
So it didn't work out perfectly, and so I end up getting a divorce. By this time, I have another child, little girl. This time, lucky me, and it was time for me to do something different. I knew that the restaurant business really wasn't for me for a couple of reasons. Number one, it really was what my husband enjoyed more than I did. I did a lot of the back office work. I would work the restaurants, but by that time, which was probably, good Lord, 10 years later, I was kind of tired of that life. The restaurant business is a little challenging. It's fun when you're young, and then it got old. So fortunately, I says, well, now I can't make money teaching dance. I'm just telling you, for all you artists out there.
No.
Sorry. It's kind of hard. You know,
That's
very challenging.
Were you guys operating restaurants in 2 cities at that point?
Just Tampa, St. Pete.
Oh, so you let go of the Detroit ones?
Yep. Yeah, we sold those.
Okay.
Yeah. No way we can keep those.
You're raising a 6-week-old, and you're in a new city, and you're flying back and forth between 2 cities operating franchise.
Yeah, that wouldn't have, I would have lost my mind if that had happened. So long story short, it's time for Brenda to figure out how to make money as opposed to anything else. And luckily for me, I live next door to a division president for U.S. Home Corporation.
Oh, I see.
One of the largest home builders. And his wife, who had been a stay-at-home mom, had recently gone to work in the Tampa Bay area as a residential appraiser. And she had been a stay-at-home mom for 12 plus years. And so I said, hey, I did it for her. I can do it for you. And so I was able to get a job. That was it. I think I did residential appraising in subdivisions for about 6 or 8 months. That was not my cup of tea. That didn't work well for me.
It's just too much time hanging out with Tampa natives, or what was the issue?
What was fascinating was going in and out of that many people's homes.
Yeah.
When you're little, you don't go into many people's homes. Maybe your family members, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, that kind of stuff. So that was kind of cool. I really liked that. But no, it just became too repetitive for me. There wasn't enough variety. And then I learned about this thing called commercial real estate appraising. And that seemed like the next challenge that I wanted to undertake.
Oh, okay.
So luckily I worked for a guy that was, open to that. He was not a designated appraiser. And at that time, there was no state certification. There wasn't anything else. So you either were a designated, appraiser or not. I knew that's what I needed to do next. So he had hired a gentleman. His name was George Cuddyback. And he was a cranky little guy. Oh my God. I ended up falling in love as a mentor. George was definitely my mentor, but he was the crankiest guy I ever met. And so it took a few years, got my MAI, and that was really, the start of it. My biggest thing about going into appraising, though, remember the dance stuff?
Yes.
So I loved teaching. I loved teaching those kids, and I really did miss being able to do that. But I also loved being on stage. And so I was in a performing dance company, and we did things like USO shows and stuff like that. I one time got to dance with Bob Hope. So that was like my claim.
No kidding.
So those things are fun. But there was that thing called adrenaline, right? You're behind stage, you're waiting to go out, you're all excited about that. So I'll never forget one time I went into my boss early on. Maybe I'd been appraising for a couple of years. And I said, so I got a question. Where does the adrenaline come in this job? When do I get to feel that? When does that happen?
Oh, wow.
And kind of looked across the desk at me like I'd lost my mind and says, yeah, Brenda, I don't think there is. But he was wrong. I found
He was wrong. Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Another guy that's wrong. That happens. We need to hear that more often, I think, Brenda.
I thought it was the other way around there. No, you know where I found it was? I found it in testifying.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Uh-huh. There's some adrenaline there, right? I mean, it's kind of
adrenaline.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting stuff. Didn't like depositions. I always looked at being an expert witness as depositions were like prize fights. Yes. And the attorneys were, the promoters, the managers, and we appraisers were the fighters that had to go in and punch it out. We were the ones that got the black eyes and got, it was horrible. So I didn't like the deposition part, but I loved the other parts. The problem is with appraising and those that do that work way more than I did, you don't get in the courtroom often enough.
No, you really don't.
And looking back on it now, I guess that's a good thing because people settle, so you don't have to go that far.
Yeah.
But that was as close as I got to adrenaline in my career. So I left that employment. Then I went to another firm here in Tampa. Again, had a really tough mentor, but one of the smartest men I ever worked for, Kim Schwanke. Mm-hmm. And Kim ran a great firm. The man could do math in his head. I mean, I'm talking complex math like I've never seen before.
No kidding.
But one time he took one of my appraisal reports. You know how they would, like bodybuilder types and stuff. Back in the day, we had phone books. They were like, They could do that trick and like rip a phone book in half.
Yeah, I knew my orthodontist used to be able to do that. It was
really
as a young kid.
His hands in your mouth then, if he could,
I kind of figured there was nothing he couldn't accomplish. I just didn't want him to rip out any teeth while he was in there, trying to.
Ooh, that's making me feel a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Decades ago. Yeah.
Well, Kim could make one of my appraisal reports bleed because he used red ink when he was correcting it.
Well, I don't know too many that don't use red ink, quite honestly.
Yeah. And then he did rip one in half one time. Completely ripped it in half and told me to start all over. So those are the moments that I kind of remember. So that, that was kind of it. I found it to be a really fascinating career. I remember going from wearing a leotard and tights every day to carrying a briefcase was a great, great thing. That was kind of exciting. Like, wow, I'm kind of a professional person now. I just loved it. I really, really, really loved it. It was challenging. Mm-hmm. It was very challenging. Amazing. So I had to get my mat.
So, Brenda, I have to ask, I imagine, just kind of putting things in context. Here you are. You have no relationships to speak of, no family. Nobody's out there just kind of shepherding you through things. It's you and probably a bunch of old dudes. How was that for you?
It's a great question. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of fun with it. I did get in trouble one time.
Just once?
Yeah. One time because of that, because I you know how men sometimes have their favorite body part for women?
Yes.
Yes.
I've been in those conversations on more than one occasion. With women, with men, with all kinds of people. It's a fascinating discussion, especially when you're younger.
Yeah. And there were two places.
Of course, I'm married now. I don't have those conversations anymore. But, when I was single.
Well, I'll tell you, my husband and I still feel this way. We've been married 30 some odd plus years. You're never too old to appreciate.
No, that's true.
Something, some beauty, some shape, something that is appealing to the eye. So I don't have a problem with it. But because of some of those conversations that I found funny and I would enjoy them and, giggle with them, I one time had a daughter.
Yes.
I was picking up her room one time and she had a lot of broken Barbie dolls.
Oh, okay.
And so I took some of those various body parts from the broken Barbie dolls and I put them in envelopes and I mailed them to some of my fellow appraisers in the office. I did it like I missed one week and then I would wait a few days and then and then the conversations that I would hear in the hallway were like, oh my God, somebody mailed, a pair of legs to me. And I'm sitting in my office just giggling, going, this is the funniest thing I ever heard in my whole life.
Oh my gosh.
And it was all funny. And and it went on for weeks and weeks because, I separated them. It was all fun and games until I got a call from the U.S. Post Office.
The post office called you?
Yes. Somebody that I mailed it to felt that it was a threat because one of the Barbie dolls had a slit. It was a really cheap Barbie doll, and she had a slit, like the plastic had broken. And so I don't know, but somebody reported that there was a threat or something.
Yes.
And so it's a felony. So I learned really quickly not to play those kind of practical
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, don't send stuff in the mail that could ever be construed as threatening. And
oh my goodness,
so I don't play those games. But I played a lot of other games. I never had a problem. Fast forward a lot into the world of raising venture capital and the software and,
Sure.
where I sort of came. I would get these calls all the time from some reporter somewhere that would say, oh, Brenda, what's it like being out in Silicon Valley and you're trying to raise money and you're a woman and nobody gives money to women. And what does that feel like? And I honestly had to say, there's no difference. I'm just a human and it's hard for everybody. And I don't care what you hear out there that all you have to do is fog an ear and someone's going to give you $5 million to start your company. That's not true.
Yeah,
it's hard. But I really didn't feel there was a difference. Now, was there a difference? I don't know, probably.
Yeah.
But I never felt it. And so as a result of that, those interviews were really short because what they were looking for was me to tell them because they wanted to promote that cause that, hey,
the dramatization.
Oh my God, yes. And so I just couldn't do it. And that's the same way. I think I did grow up because of, when I started appraising, how old was I? I was 27 years old, something like that. So I was very young. And so I would say that most of my friends were male.
Yes.
I grew up very comfortable in that situation. I remember getting my designation. The chapters were really big in Florida. And we would get 400 or 500 people at a chapter meeting back then. Yeah, it was crazy.
It's amazing.
And so they used to give you that little pin. And, it was like you were going to whatever it was in a fraternity and you would get your...
Yeah, you get pinned.
Yeah. So I would joke that I didn't want to put a pin in one of my nice dresses or something. So I was going to take out one of my earrings and put it in my ear.
Oh, I love that.
To get
I totally get that. I totally get that.
So that was it. And then I left Kim Schwenke with another woman that was an appraiser there who had gotten her designation. By that time I was designated. And we opened up a firm.
In Tampa?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
In Tampa. So very rare. I think Linda was the first designated MAI in the state of Florida. I think I was the second designated woman in the state of Florida. And, but again, we didn't think about it that way. We just knew that I think having never held a job other than for those, and even when, I never looked at that I had a real boss when I was an appraiser because you're paid on commission and you have so much freedom to, as long as you're writing good reports, they're telling you, the craft of doing your work, but they're not telling you much more than that. So I never felt like I had that 9 to 5 kind of come in job that it just made sense for me that I was going to own and operate. I was never going to have a long-term career working for anyone else.
Got it.
That just didn't make sense, I guess, for me. So
that's fantastic. So you all decide to jump out on your own, start a firm. You decide you're not going to send body parts to prospective clients.
No, we did other things when we hired our first male. So it started out, there was, remember this back then? Professional and a secretary. So when we first started, there were 4 women.
Yep.
And then we brought on another appraiser trainee, female. So now there were 5 of us running around the office. And then we went to hire our first male. And that was, interesting because back then, it's just us girls, kind of like when it used to be just the guys. And
totally
we
get
would
it.
do things like maybe, like adjust your skirt or do whatever. And we were a little nervous about having a guy amongst us. So we were going to put a cat bell on his ankle so we could hear him in a clean mirror. That's all of our humor. And of course we didn't.
Oh my God.
And so, we grew that from, that's where I met my now husband. I hired him.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's, you know what, Brenda, you have a whole nother topic opportunity for so many females. I only know this because I listen to so many of the conversations my wife ends up in with our adult nieces and also other friends. My wife and I both got married later in life, and that is just a difficult opportunity. And I have to tell her, hon, you could have gone there at a different pace. You could have just hired the guy and tried it out first. I like working with you. Oh, definitely not. Got to go.
Yeah, it was really interesting because Jeff had been working at another firm in town and he came up to interview with us. And by this time, I don't know, maybe we had grown, maybe we had 8 or 9 people running around. And he came up to interview. And we interviewed him, and it was okay. So he goes back. We call him back for a second interview. And he was sitting on one side of the desk, and Linda, my partner, and I were on the other side of the desk. And we said, so you're back. I'm sure that you went back and you tried to figure out, who is this firm? Who are we? You ask a lot of questions. Yeah. And then, we kind of dug a little bit more to figure out who you were and, beyond your resume. And he was a Florida State real estate finance grad. So, of course, he certainly had his credentials. That wasn't
You mean, but he didn't know pizza. Like, he didn't know good mozzarella. I mean, how good of an appraiser, designated or not, can you really be if you don't know good mozzarella?
Yeah, exactly. You don't know the price of mozzarella, right? It's like a cap rate. It's exactly like a cap rate. You can run your whole business if you know how to relate everything to the price per pound of a good mozzarella.
Oh,
and I'm not kidding. Do you know right now, think about it. Any fast food pizza place does not have good mozzarella.
Oh, I actually agree with you on that. That's painful.
It's horrible. And the reason why is it's the most expensive ingredient. It's the most expensive thing there is in a restaurant other than your personnel. So anyway, so he did. He came back. So we asked him, we said, well, you go first. Tell us why you're back and what you heard when you went back to talk to your peers about coming to work up here at Pearson Doran.
Yes.
Am I allowed to say a mild cuss word?
Absolutely. We don't really have many kids that listen to this. We're just got a bunch of seasoned and not so seasoned people around the appraisal profession. We have a lot of attorneys and accountants and other professionals that listen to this as well. They just find it fascinating. So this will be even better.
So he said, we go, you go first. Tell us. Tell us what you heard. He goes, well, when I first came out, they were kind of like, really? You're going to go interview with those ladies? Well, okay. So I went back and I talked to him a little bit more. And I said, are you really thinking about going to work for those bitches on the north end of town?
Oh my gosh.
And so Linda and I are kicking each other. Remember, we're sitting on the same side of the desk across from him. So he can't see. We're kicking each other going, we knew the minute he said that he was hired.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
The minute he said it. And here's why. What is probably one of the most important traits for an appraiser to have?
Hello. Honesty.
Honesty, ethics, integrity.
Yep.
So for somebody like that in a job interview to just say what was on his mind or what, that's what he heard. He went back there and remember, women, there weren't many of us. So what else are you going to call? So then, of course, what did we do? We leaned in and said, oh, the bitches on the north end of town. And when you ask them, why do they call us the bitches on the north end of town?
Yes.
What did they say? And he proceeds to tell us, and it sounded something like this. Well, you guys write really good reports. You have a good reputation already, and you haven't been in business for that long, and everybody up here makes good money. I went, yay!
That's it.
Cool. All right. So remember, I was divorced, so
Yep.
it was probably almost 2 years later, and Jeff started flirting with me.
Oh, got it.
I know. And the way he would do it, he was always very athletic. I remember I'd been a dancer.
Of course.
It would come up in conversation that I really missed having that level of activity, physical activity in my life.
Got it.
And so here's how he started to flirt. 2 ways. He would leave workout routines for me for the gym in my inbox.
That's really thoughtful, actually.
Isn't that so romantic?
I mean, I was just thinking, you don't want your boss to die from, just not being healthy. It's like, hey, I'm just putting some workout routines in there because, if you're a little physically fit, you're mentally sharper. He's thinking about his longevity.
It just been that he thought I was fat and sloppy.
I did not say that.
Go to bed. And then this other thing is Jeff has a big love of music, always has. And so he would make me his own CDs. Remember CDs?
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me he was making mixtapes. I thought we were going in the Wayback Machine here.
Yeah, he would make me CDs. And so slowly but surely, our romance was born. And so we worked together for quite a while, grew that firm, 30 some odd, plus people.
That's impressive. I mean, that's a threshold of complexity, 2 thresholds of complexity that people never routinely get to. I mean, when you look at the United States Census data that shows that there's approximately 30 million firms in the United States, and only 5% of them actually scale above $1 million in revenue. And you can do the quick math. On an average firm, several $100,000 per person, 30 people. Like, you not only get through the first level of complexity, you actually get to the second level. And that's an impressive accomplishment.
It was good until it wasn't.
Oh, no. Did Jeff stop making mixtapes or what happened?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Oh, no.
No, for a long, for quite a while, we didn't let anyone know about our personal relationship.
Oh.
So, none of that happened at the office. That was always away from the office. And for a couple of reasons. Number one, I had 2 children. So, of course, no one in my personal family was I going to let near my romantic relationship. And the same thing for work. In my mind, those were 2 separate things. I'm really good at putting things in compartments, in boxes. Mm-hmm. I think I have a lot of male traits. I'm just saying.
I've heard that, I'm not the wisest one, but if you want to get better at something, work with people that are there. And so coaches and counselors and therapists along the way, I've definitely heard that tends to gear more towards a male trait than a female trait.
Yeah. Women were supposed to have the spaghetti brain. Everything touches everything else. And that's how we can multitask.
All interconnected.
Yeah. You guys like waffles. You pour the syrup in and it goes into each one square. Yes,
Brenda, you've been watching me, haven't you? How did you know this? This is so impressive.
So, well, anyway, long story short, I had made a decision when we went into the partnership, and this was a business decision that showed how young I was when I did it. I felt that there should always be a tiebreaker in business. And so when we entered into our partnership agreement, Linda and I suggested that I take 49%. She had gotten her MAI before me. And so when she did discover that Jeff and I were an item, and I wanted to back off a little bit from putting in, 70 hours a week to start to build a personal relationship.
Yeah.
She wasn't ready for that.
Oh, no.
She was married but had no children, and the business was her baby, and it had been my baby, alongside of her. But, I definitely needed to back off just a little, and that didn't work well for her. So she came in one day and asked me to leave.
Asked you to leave?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, she wanted me to leave.
Oh, my goodness.
The difference was Linda was a very, very smart woman, and she handled like the financing side. She handled the operational side of the firm.
Yep.
I handled bringing in the business side. I was more on the human side. So I was whatever HR there is. And,
Sure.
I was good on doing projections for the business, but the thought of managing a set of books and reading balance sheets and P&L statements, and that wasn't my thing. And so I did work really hard in my mind to try to talk her out of that.
Yes.
But I was not successful. And I also wasn't successful at splitting the firm and getting, some people to split and come with me and some people to stay with her. And I learned a good lesson there. And here's what a lot of the employees said to me. Brenda, I have a family to feed.
Yep.
And you're going to go off and you're going to start a new firm. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to build that back up again. And you're probably going to be successful. There's that word, probably.
Probably.
And this is a known thing. This is a sure thing. And so for right now, I'm going to have to stay where I am.
Yeah. I mean, people got to manage their own priorities, and they have to address their own risk tolerance, the risk reward trade-off. And, those are decisions that get made.
Yep. It doesn't mean that the logical, practical side of who we are always fits well with the emotional side of where we are. I can certainly say that I stayed friends with all of those, folks over the years. But within, 2 days, Jeff and I had a full set of computers operating out of our dining room. We're looking for lease space. And, a week and a half later, we were in office space in downtown Tampa and started all over. Jeff, if not anything else, is a get her done kind of guy.
Hey, there's something to be said about success comes from people that just make decisions and move. And whether it's the right decision or wrong decision, at least you get feedback on it and you can adjust, versus if you wait and you analyze and you think about and you get stuck in paralysis from the analysis, and then everybody else has already finished running the race and you're just like still thinking about putting on your running shoes and maybe going to the workout that Jeff just sent you in your inbox or something.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy. And he had a really strong technical background. He was always that person in the firm that everybody would go to. Hey, this isn't working. That isn't working.
Oh, I see.
And we decided that we thought it would be good to have that separation. So our old office was in the suburbs. So we located in the downtown area. And, in the end, what an amazing thing it was. Because without that break, who knows what would have happened. But with that break, Jeff and I got to start something together.
That's nice.
We got married a year or so later.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
We were with another firm. And then got into the software side of things, and without any, anything holding us back or telling us that, we couldn't go off in different directions. And I think that breakup, gives you that strength and that stamina. Every time something terrible, so to speak, happens, once you push through it, it's amazing what it feels like on the other side.
Wow. So did you all decide just to go back into business with the same general client focus that you and Linda had? Really, or did you all say, hey, we're going to carve it out, or we're going to narrow things down, or how did that come about?
Nope. There was no non-compete between Linda
and owners, of course.
Yeah, we were the owners. And so that was okay. She tended to like to do a little bit more of the little bit of condemnation work and stuff. She was a good partner in that, when we had our settlement, and I took a note for what was owed me, which was a substantial amount of money, and she was going to pay me out over 3 years. And people said, you'll never see that. Don't do it. She paid me every last penny.
Kudos to Linda.
Yeah.
Being a stand-up person.
Yep. Incredible stand-up. And, and that builds your trust in people too.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel that the more that you trust people, the more that they live up to the trust that you place in them.
That's true.
So, we've always felt that way. When Linda and I were doing that back then, we would never bring on a new appraiser that we knew that their first year we would have enough work to provide for them that they could make $80,000. That was our our goal to them. We're talking late 80s.
Oh, that is extremely impressive.
It's what they had to do. And, we could show them the tools, and stuff and how to get there. We were, constantly, learning. I loved business. So I could take what I had learned operating and running the restaurants, bring that into the appraisal profession, and bring some fun in there. So the whole thing so we grew another appraisal firm. I forget, we took down like 4,000 square feet of rental space and on the 10th floor of a building in downtown Tampa. And, the internet was, getting bigger and stronger. And this thing, you could put photos on your screen.
Ooh.
And as appraisers, as that old adage goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words, or how many it is, or whatever that is.
Oh, it's worth an awful lot. I agree with you on that one.
Yep. And so we said we need a database.
Yes.
And we got to be able to have these images and something that we can retrieve and stuff. So we hired a programmer to build one for us.
Okay.
And then decided that the rest of the world needed it as well. And that was our first product and that we brought out. And that was our first branch into the world of software.
Oh, really? So as a result of solving a problem for yourself, at what point did you actually realize it was a solution for others?
The minute we had it.
Really?
We knew it from the minute we needed it. That's kind of simple. There was no rocket science to that. Every appraiser, needed to have it.
Yes.
I think where I overstepped too much was when I realized the value of having a comparable database, and I realized it for each individual office. I then felt that it was really important for us as appraisers to share our comparable data with others. And that was kind of I was right.
You're absolutely right. I mean, think about efficiency. Goodness gracious.
I was right, but that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, but that also that's poking a bear that's still
It poked a big bear. It poked a big bear.
Yeah.
I couldn't get anybody to do it, including the Appraisal Institute, although they were sort of looking at some things like that. So what we did is we created a product and we called it Doring Online, the name of the firm that we started, even though Jeff Hicks, Brenda Doring, he didn't have any ego in that game, and he felt that the Doring name had been out there longer because of Pearson Doring.
Yeah.
And so when we did the appraisal database, and we wanted to share data, we put it on the internet with photos, and we called it Doring Online because we took all of our comp data and put it online.
Are you running a real estate firm? Are you looking to grow your firm, streamline your operations, or prepare for an exit? Don't miss this opportunity to work with Michael to figure out your business pathway to massive success. With a growth system for business that leverages opportunities and removes obstacles that Michael has successfully taught to thousands of entrepreneurs globally. Michael's guidance will help turn aspirations into reality. Michael is a renowned figure in the real estate and business coaching worlds. As one of only 5 individuals worldwide for Entrepreneurs Organization, Michael serves a dual role, training business owner participants in the EO Accelerator program, while also upskilling EO members' impact and capacity to lead multi-million-dollar businesses. Get more out of your business. In working with Michael, you can achieve the growth, profitability, and life balance you desire. With Michael, it's not just about business growth. It's about redefining your purpose for business and for your life. If you are interested in working with Michael, contact him via his LinkedIn profile or email him at michaelh@paru.com. And now back to part 2 of the episode, where we explore new technology trends that will shape the world of real estate appraisal for years to come.
Yeah, I like that. So it's basically, instead of America Online, you had Doring Online. I thought you were going to call it like
Remember
Brenda's.
that? Yeah, AOL. Yeah,
AOL. I thought you were going to pull out like the Craigslist reference or something, like Brenda's list of lots of photos. No, it's Doring Online, not America.
Yeah, and so we did those things where we start trying to call the product that we built was called Datacomp.
Yes.
And it was an online, it was, in people's offices. And I was really fortunate that one of the appraisers that I worked for back then was Walmart. And there was an MAI there that I became really good friends with. And I was trying to launch, this data comp software so appraisers could at least manage their own comps in their own offices. And Mark Tackett was my buddy, and he called me up one day and he says, Brenda, he goes, I have an idea too. He says, I think that I need at Walmart a group of appraisers that work just for me. I envision around the country a group of appraisers that are all Walmart appraisers, so to speak. I want them to have a comp database so that when they're, they're sharing this data back and forth with each other, that's going to make them more efficient when they're doing work for me.
Absolutely.
And will you help me build that network? And he goes, here's what I'll do. I'll underwrite 50% of the cost of the software to build this network. So
that
he actually
helped. Beautiful. Oh my goodness. Oh my.
Well, it sounds beautiful. It sounds beautiful, Mike, but you know what?
And I don't know how the other half costs. So, I mean, suddenly it's really problematic.
Then this is kind of a sad commentary, if you don't mind me saying, on our
Please.
Software back then cost $650 for a single user of the software. Not very expensive, right?
No.
In mid-90s.
Okay. Yeah.
And so my pitch, as I'm calling around the country to appraisers, was how would you like to be an approved appraiser, part of a network of appraisers working for Walmart, and you're going to do things like they may want you to just write a neighborhood description for them. They may want you to do some research for them because they're going up against a zoning hearing. They may want you to just pull some comparable rents for them because they need a rent study. They may need you to do an appraisal. They may need you to do a land appraisal. Don't know.
Yes.
But what's really important for them is that you share your comparable data that you pull, your sales and your rents, amongst the other, and we're building this network amongst the other appraisers. They'll underwrite the software, $650 single user.
Yeah.
If you buy 5 users, whatever that is, they'll underwrite 50% of that. Are you excited? Are you excited? And I didn't get excitement back.
Really?
No.
Oh, goodness.
Excitement back. I got, first of all, the sharing was terrible. But second of all, the first question was, well, I don't know if it's worth it. How much work am I going to get each year?
Dude, if you get one assignment, it's worth it. What are you talking about? How much do you not understand your number? Now, I also appreciate, depending on what their specialty is, that totally might make sense. Because, hey, it doesn't really fit. That's not the type of work we do. We don't work with those kind of clients. So I get that. Positioning is a huge piece as well. But wow.
Couldn't get there.
Oh, my goodness.
And there was an agreement between Mark and I that I was being paid a set amount each month to build the network.
Yes.
To take up for the time that it was, that I had to build it and do all of this sort of stuff. I actually went up to Bentonville to the Walmart headquarters.
Okay.
And made a presentation, and Rob Walton was in the background. He was at the back of the room, and they ended up cutting our budget. Yeah, it wasn't growing, I guess, fast enough, and we had to shut the thing down. But during that time, it was interesting because the appraisers had the biggest problem with sharing their comps, even with the network that was their own. That would be today like CBRE saying, we're not giving our comps to any other CBRE franchise. It's just,
like, hello.
Yep. But kind of true to form for Brenda, I still believed in that whole concept of either a network. I certainly believed in sharing of comps. And so I figured there had to be a better way to do it.
Yes.
So here's where I started to get in a little trouble. Again. I
was going to say, not for the first time.
So I had to think about, where are the comps? Where do they live? Well, the comps live in the appraisal reports, right?
Yeah, they do.
So I started calling my bank clients, and I asked them, did they want access to those comps? And the answer was, of course they want access to those comps. So they could do everything from their lenders could have it. So they could more quickly be able to talk to a borrower. And if it was an assured amount that the borrower was looking at, let's say, the borrower's looking for $400 a square foot on something when it should have been $200 a square foot, they could do it down there at the retail side. Or if it was, certainly to be able to do reviews of appraisals, they needed the data. So I said, well, if you give me the data, I will digitize it for you.
Yes.
and give it back to you. Great. So a few banks signed on.
Great.
We ended up growing a staff of 30 some odd data entry clerks.
Okay.
Because here's what that looked like. The reports, we would either hand pick them up, PDFs, or they would be FedExed and mailed to us.
Sure.
We had agreements with the banks that we had to agree that if a bank needed something out of an appraisal report, because we had their copy, that we would respond to them within, I don't remember what our SLAs were, but we had to respond, pull the report, give them their answers, do whatever we had to do. And so we went to town building the database.
Love that.
And two things happened.
Yes.
My fellow peer appraisers did not like me.
What? Is that a surprise? Is that ever a surprise? I mean, come on. If there's one thing we can count on for this industry, at least as my own experience, I've been around for a number of decades, is that is exactly the case. Some of them will. Most of them won't. Most
of them didn't like me at all. And because they felt I was stealing their data. Now, here was the promise. Promise was, we're going to build this till it has value, that there's enough comparable data that it has value. And we were always going to be able to give it back to the appraisers at free or nominal cost because they were contributing. Because they weren't really doing the work to do the contributing. All they did was, quote, sell their appraisal report with those comps in it to the bank.
Yeah, it's not copyrighted.
There's work. Here's what we learned with the attorneys we had. When an appraiser creates the appraisal report and they sell the product, the bank owns it.
Absolutely. But I can imagine there were people that tested that at first because they might have had a different outlook.
Oh, they'll still test it today, 20 years later. Does our industry have a shared database of comparable information today?
No, but they're happy to disparage CoStar all the more because they're paying for somebody else to do it for them because they haven't built it. Some people have. They've been very resourceful, but generally speaking. But I mean, Brenda, I really appreciate what you're saying. You remind me of a quote from Nicholas Klein that says, first they ignore you, then they ridicule you, and then they attack you. And then they may even want to burn you. And then they build monuments to you. So I don't know if they're in the monument building stage yet, but, hopefully
we're even close. And it's funny you bring up CoStar because when we were doing this, LoopNet and CoStar were independent of each other, but both starting out. They were in their formative years. Matter of fact, the company in California was called Comps Inc.
Yes.
That had a system of comparable data that they were collecting. Everybody in California used it. They didn't do what most states did.
Wow.
And it was a combination of a little bit of confirmation on top of public records information. And CoStar bought them. That's how they got their start. They bought Comps Inc. out of California. And then they came and wanted to buy me.
I know. That makes some sense.
Yeah. And we had about somewhere between 15 and 20 banks at this point that were, giving us the data. It still wasn't enough data, Michael. It takes a lot of data because there's two things that data has a short shelf life, even in commercial real estate.
So short, yeah.
Right? So you're paying data entry clerks at this point to enter that data, proof that data, make sure it's accurate. Oh, and you should have heard, even the banks didn't really like sharing that much. They would say things like, well, I don't know whether I can trust the data from bank ABC because my appraisers are better than that bank's appraisers. And so my comps are probably going to be better than those comps. And how am I going to know which comps I can trust? And oh my God. And, and I learned so much because some of those concerns they had were sort of valid, but it was certainly the foundation of building, a national database of shared comparable data. But one of my big banks, what was it? It was Citicorp was one of our large banks. And I remember always calling my guy up there and going, really? Can you loan somewhere else other than Hawaii? No one else needs those Hawaii comps. It's costing me a lot of money, but nobody needs it. And we changed the product from Doring Online. We renamed it to Get Comps.
Okay.
And we even
That's a good name. It's a good name.
A facility where people could call in and we would run the comp search for them and deliver out the comps for them. I mean, this was so long ago. But anyway, so CoStar tried to buy us. That was not a good experience at all.
So you and Mr. Florence weren't on the best of terms?
No. And
Enough said.
No, not at all. Every meeting ended up like, well, Brenda, if we don't buy you, we're going to have to sue you. Every meeting.
Oh my God. That hasn't changed.
No, nothing has changed there. Some people have a different idea of how to build their cultures, and that one's there. And so it was a big missed opportunity. I know the Appraisal Institute missed a big opportunity because I could have, if I had had some support from them, I think we could have gotten a lot further than I could have ever done, trying to bootstrap and build and do that. Even when we were raising venture capital, I had left a lot of that idea behind me, and we were building collaboration software for deal closing. And at this time, this was really kind of, for most parts of the country, kind of on the waning side of venture capital time. For Silicon Valley, they could almost see it was over, but the rest of us couldn't yet. And we were doing a $15 million raise. That, quite frankly, this is how much of an appraiser I am. When I wrote my first business plan, and I had Carlos Cardenas was my MAI partner in California. And when I wrote my first business plan, we needed $3.6 million.
All right.
Now, in the world of raising venture capital, do you have any idea how stupid that is?
Yes, I do. But many of those listening in may not be familiar with private equity and seed rounds and venture funds and talking 3.6. So just share a little context to that.
Okay. Well, first of all, we did do the friends and family. So we did a private placement first, because you kind of have to do that. You got to show those investors that people who know and love you believe in what you're doing before they're going to take that risk. Yeah. And then you lose that money for those that know and love you. I mean, what a screwed up system that is. And for all you angel investors who might listen out there, bless your hearts. We love you very much. But boy, you guys are really on the front line.
And keep providing your money. I mean, that's the important thing. It's never one and done.
Yeah. And you raise and raise and raise. So we did that, and we were out, for this $15 million round. And of course, it was a firm out of Southern California, and they were kind of crazy anyway. But 3.6, nobody needs 3 point anything. You need 3, you need 5, you need 10, you need 20, whatever you need. And
but they must have smiled with, the way sometimes a parent looks at a kid and be like, oh, that's so cute. You need 3.6.
I got a lot of that. I got a lot of education on that stuff. That's how we ended up and I had a lot of advisors, when we were going through that stuff, next thing you know, I had an entire, 10 people in a law firm that were our attorneys. You had the CPAs, you had all of these advisors walking you through and teaching you all these kind of things. And frankly, they were also taking a lot of risk, because where's the money going to ever come to pay them back? Raising capital back then, I think, was a lot different than I witnessed it today. So long story short, we ended up needing, and I wrote a lot of business plans, because every time I'd write one, they'd go, no, that's not their appetite right now. You got to need more money. I couldn't figure out what I needed more money for, but
what do you mean I need more money?
Yeah, you gotta figure that out. So you go back to the drawing board and you create another. So luckily, all of that building cash flow modeling, in real estate really helped me to be able to build this business model. It went from 3.6 all the way up to 15 million over a period of 15 months.
Okay.
Nothing really changed.
Impressive growth. I mean, we're not talking inflation necessarily, but yeah.
I don't know if it was growth. Yeah, there was a lot of spending going on. Long story short, the dot-com fall happened. They quit talking to us immediately.
Oh, yeah, they stopped talking to everybody.
Yeah. I think I said to Carlos called me up one day and says, Brenda, are you watching the ticker tapes? I go, no, Carlos, that's not what I do. And he says, well, you might want to, turn it on. He goes, the market just crashed. Remember, it was that one day. I mean, it just, it was in one day.
Yep.
And I said to Carlos, I said, well, because I was having to fly back and forth to Southern California.
Oh, yeah.
They would also ask me this. They would say, so, Brenda, we like to keep our companies close to us. You're going to be moving out here, right?
You're going to move here, right? You're like,
and I would go, I'm going to be so close. It's going to be like I'm your next door neighbor. And that was the only answer I would ever give.
Oh, I love
didn't
that.
say I wasn't moving. But I sure as hell didn't say I was, because I wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
And so I asked Carlos, is there anything I can do? How do I save this deal? What do I need to do? And he goes, Brenda, You could come out here. It's the exact words, Brenda. You could come out here and dance naked on the boardroom table. The deal's done. Okay, yeah. I'm not going to do that.
You're like, but I'm a dancer. I mean, you just don't even know. I mean, you think you know, like you don't even know. Have you all done tumbling together? We need to do tumbling together. Like we can really turn this around.
So everything went away. The collaboration software, which was, and back then in the Wall Street Journal, every Wednesday was the real estate and technology section.
Oh, yes.
2 pages in the middle.
2 pages.
People were getting $50 million, $80 million.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I ripped all of those pages off the wall in my office, took that down and licked my wounds. And
I don't know. I'm just thinking that Mr. Florence was really lucky that you didn't raise that money. Otherwise, we might be talking about get my comps instead of CoStar.
It would have been nice for a profession. It really would have. It would have been nice. And just so you know, a little tip in the future, there's a resurrection happening right now.
Oh, love it.
Yeah, there's some opportunity that's out there.
Love that.
So, but anyway, so I put the software away. The software had the comp database in it, but it was really kind of on the side. The software we were doing to raise the really large dollars in collaboration was to close deals more efficiently, bring together all the parties of a transaction. I'm sure you've been in commercial real estate closings. There's usually a war room with stacks and stacks.
I've done a lot of M&A, actually. We acquire firms. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't have exit plans, and we come alongside and acquire those firms. So I'm very familiar with due diligence and deal room, and it's quite the undertaking that people have no idea how excruciating it is.
Oh, and bringing all those people together and knowing who they are and what their contact is and their phone numbers and where the files are and what their calendars are and all of that is what, and really Carlos built more than I did. He was really smart, but that's what it was. And, you know, that whole thing just imploded and we just put it on a shelf. Went back to, you know, data comp as our software, and we still had the appraisal company going. So we had the two. We were always bootstrapped because I took all of the profits from the appraisal company and poured them into the software company. So we always called the appraisal company the bank.
Sure. Got it. That was your cash cow. It was the one, as they'd say, for those dairy farmers out there, that's the one you're going out milking every morning to make sure you got
every day.
Yeah, putting the gallon canister on the table there at the meals.
Yep, it was nice. Never took out a bank loan. Just really used all of the profits from the appraisal side. To this day, we still do a little bit.
Got it.
A little bit, but that, you know, that's how we did it. That's how we bootstrapped to get where we are today. So today we have a very small, for the last 5 or 6 years, we had a very small appraisal company. We keep the appraisal company because it's our research and development department, and it's profitable. Yeah. So, or at least pays for itself. So it keeps it close to the industry that Jeff and I, you know, dearly love, because it created all these other opportunities that have happened in our lives that we wouldn't have. So we feel an allegiance to it. So we like it from that perspective. We like the intellectual part. We think that, you know, appraisers are really smart people.
Yes.
The problem with appraisers is they're really smart people and they're not as well-rounded business people as they need to be. So we have that, but it's really our software company that has grown, that gets us excited.
Yes.
And it came about because, again, you know, I just fully believe that people make everything happen. You know, you can even sit and try hard. Things just kind of come at you if your mind is open, and people find you somebody, they find you to be that person that you might be willing to help them.
That's a great way to put it.
So I got a call one time from a bank appraiser, a friend of mine who needed help. Brenda, you know that collaboration software stuff you had? Could that be our internal bank workflow, vendor management, appraisal management system?
Wow.
And I said, I guess it could, but there's this product out there called RIMS.
Yeah.
Lots of banks use it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
go by that.
Exactly.
She reached through the phone and she slapped me. I had insulted her because she said, Brenda, do you really think I would be calling you to start all over and develop me something if I hadn't already researched out there to find out what was there and there isn't anything I could use that we like and we want? No, of course I wouldn't. What am I, stupid? Is essentially what Heidi said to me. So I recovered, licked my wounds and apologized because no, I'm not, that's not really as much of a joke as it sounds. I really did insult her. And thank God it was a good relationship. And so she forgave me and said, was I interested? I said, yes. It took us 2 years. Number one, Whitney Bank's the oldest bank, one of the oldest banks in this country, smaller, but old.
Yes.
Super conservative. Just getting through their legal department to have an outsider come in and do this easily took us 12 months.
Wow.
And then a lot longer to get the software done. And then once we got it built for them internally, and I think they called it WHAM, Whitney Appraisal Management something. So WHAM or something, who knows? And then we negotiated with them to maintain all of the IP, the intellectual property that we learned through that process so that we could then turn it into a commercially viable product that we could take out into the marketplace and sell. And that's the outcome of that was we created a competitor to RIMS.
Yes.
Called Uconnect. Still have great respect that they were out there first before anyone else. I think I have respect for them because of the experience I had trying to be out on the forefront doing something. I failed, but they didn't.
Yes.
So that was our big entry, much stronger and bigger. Now I say that our big entry, but if you dial back to when we built Datacomp became so successful for fee appraisers in this country. At one point, we had 64% market share.
That's amazing.
64% of the appraisers, active appraisers, commercial active appraisers in the country used our software. That was big.
That is impressive penetration.
Yeah, we had really good. The problem was it's just not that big of a market. You know, I mean, where do you really go? Michael, you're a smart guy. Start putting some numbers to that. You're going to see you're not raising any real money off that. You're not making a lot off that. It was a nice cottage thing to have, but
yes.
So Uconnect was certainly more exciting, certainly had a lot more space to grow, and that's still growing. Along the way, as your appraiser folks will know, RIMS was bought by an environmental firm, EDR, and then EDR built their own appraisal management software called 360. And so now that's our primary competition. Is they're now called Lightbox because they changed their name because they have a whole, suite, not really a suite. They have a whole stable, I would say, of commercial real estate companies that they own. And as I understand it, a big impetus for them goes all the way back 20 years ago because they want to get what? The holy grail of real estate data.
Yes.
So the more companies you have that are assimilating that data, better chance that you're going to win at that. So that's where we sit today. Though, Lightbox is our primary competitor to Uconnect. We're really proud. We now have 20 some odd % of the top 100 banks in the country use our Uconnect software.
Congratulations.
So we don't have 60, some odd % like we did before, but we're still young. We got space. We got time. And I think that it really helped us grow because of the difference is we're doing the same thing we did before. We're appraisers building a product for appraisers. We understand with deep institutional knowledge of, the appraisal profession and what people want and what they need. Yes. And I think that that's the only way we were able to grow as fast as we did to compete with the giant, which is, the RIMS 360 family.
That's fantastic. That is quite an accomplishment. I mean, Brenda, you've been through so much more so than most, but it also just highlights that when you not only are doing what you do, but you take a step back and pay attention to other people's needs and challenges and recognize that maybe you're the one to actually bring a solution present, sometimes successfully, sometimes not, but you always, you never lose. You always learn. I love that people are like, oh, there's a winner and a loser. I'm like, no, there's a winner and a learner. Like you always learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a great.
I remember going into sales and hating the thought that I'm going to have a software product because, with Appraiser, you can grow a pretty big appraisal company. You don't really have to know how to sell. You don't have to be a great salesperson to do that. And I just knew I hated salespeople anyway, right? And the reason I hated salespeople was because most of them aren't good. So we don't really hate salespeople. I mean, think of a time in your life, Michael, where you had a true great salesperson who was only going to listen to you. What were you really looking for? What did you need? And they guided you to that. And you trusted them and you purchased something. That's an incredible feeling.
It really is.
It doesn't happen that often. And that's why salespeople get such a bad name.
Yes.
Because the training that used to be out there was not that kind of training.
Completely agree.
But it's out there now.
There's so much bad training out there. And I mean, I love what Jack Daly talks about. And that is your most important role in sales capacity is not to actually get someone to buy or sell. It's to actually allow them to understand what their needs are and you understand what their needs are and help them make a decision. And it could be for you. It could be against you. It could be in a total another direction. And when it's not about you, then it's actually about something that matters.
Well, it's about them.
Yes.
And that's exactly
their them or their result or, whatever it might be. But yes.
Yeah. And that's what works. And I learned that because I did take professional sales training through the Sandler system.
Wow,
and
great program.
It was. And very expensive, incredible training. And that's exactly what I learned. I didn't have to sell anybody anything because otherwise I couldn't have a company because that would just freak me out. I didn't like that idea that I was going to try to convince somebody of something. But I did have a moral. I had it taped on the wall of my office for a long time. I have a moral obligation to help people make decisions.
Yes.
And that's all I have to do. That is my job. And I always would joke, it's like, maybe somebody should have that in the cereal aisle. Somebody needs to take all those cereals and break them into subcategories and help people make a decision on which one they should have. There's too many choices. That's
funny. So, that is funny. Wow. Love that. Well, I mean, Brenda, given everything that you've seen and everything that you've experienced and everything that you're aware of, like, what are you looking forward to or most excited about over the next 3 to 5 years?
Continuing to grow the UConnect product, our Real Wired company, because let's face it, I'm not getting younger.
But you love dance. I mean, doesn't that mean you're forever young?
It does. Absolutely. I will be dancing somewhere, doing something. I used to think that was going to be my whole career. And I could envision myself like one of those gray-haired ponytail dancers with a cane and my students lined up at the ballet bar. And I use the cane to just tap their feet into place because I couldn't bend over and move their feet the way I would want to. And so that was really kind of one of my biggest dreams. So what we really want to do, we really do. We see so many opportunities for us to continue to help the profession of real estate appraising. We started an organization 3 years ago called FIVA, Financial Institution Valuation Advisors. Now, that's a heady name. Now, you know why I did that?
FIVA, for those of you that
FIVA. And it was sort of like when we got a little dog. My husband and I are dog lovers, and we'd always had Dobermans. And they're just, people get frightened of Dobermans, but they're the smartest dog. They're kind. They're marvelous. It was the movies that gave them their reputation. But one of them had passed. We always would keep 2 for, their camaraderie and friendship.
Yes.
And one had passed. And I looked at my husband and I said, Jeff, I don't have it in me. Our life is too busy right now to train another giant dog. It takes a lot of time and effort. And I said, I'd like to just try a little dog.
Okay.
He wasn't really excited about that. And so we did. I won't go into the story of how we picked and what we did, but we got a durable little dog, but it needed more. And so to have a big brother that was 100-pound Doberman, and this was a dog that was never going to get more than 8 pounds.
Was
We
it like
named him
yes.
Bruce.
What type of dog was it?
It was a toy poodle.
A toy poodle. I was gonna say that's small. I'm like, there's a handful of breeds that fit that description.
Yeah. And sometimes that's it. You got to kind of match things and have an image. And so when we did FIVA, the reason the name came about, and the reason it goes to naming my dog Bruce, he had to stand up. I had to have this fancy sort of name because that's what appraisers were used to. Oh, I'm part of a financial institution. I'm part of the Appraisal Institute. These names, that would become, it's like professory sort of things. And so I said, well, I'll start with that. Then I'll give everybody comfort that they're in a zone that they feel good in. But I will tell you the reason we did this. So we started this organization during COVID, and we did it to do 3 things that we think were missing in particularly the bank world where a lot of appraisers now live. So you got 2 sides of the world for the most part, right? You got those that give out the work, and those are the appraisers in the banks and the managers and the directors in those banks. And then you got those that do the work. And over the years, it's kind of sad, but they've become known as the vendors. And there's nothing that appraisers hate more than being called a vendor, but they let it happen to themselves and their vendors, and then they're hired. Now, that doesn't mean to say there's not lots of other things that appraisers do, subsectors. That's true. Those are the main ones. And these appraisers inside of those banks are truly some of the brightest people we have in the valuation industry.
Yes.
No doubt about it. But what are they missing? They're missing a voice.
Yes.
Even their own banks don't understand the value that they have and what they bring inside of that organization. Not all of them, but I'll bet I probably now know the ones that have done an incredible, exceptional job of showing that value. And since I got exposed to them by selling my software to them, I knew that if we could get them together, they could share that information, and we could rise all of those appraisers that are in the financial institutions in our banks and make that part of the profession even better. And there was nobody doing it for them. The Appraisal Institute didn't have a specialty for bank appraisers. The RMA is a great organization that supports banks, and they have a small subset that goes to appraisers, but they've got so much to do.
Yes.
There wasn't something there. So FIVA's out there to do 3 things: to elevate the industry, to provide education, so educate the industry, and then lastly, bring a sense of community to the industry. And so when we hold our monthly meetings, when I'm talking to them, we've had some in person, I always tell them, just remember, you guys and girls, you are the smartest people in the room.
Yes.
Here's your problem. You don't know how to tell anybody about it. So we're going to be your voice. We're going to say it, and then we're going to teach you to say it. And this stuff from, you were so excited to take your department and go work from home, and stop that. You were brought into these banks 20 some odd years ago as a chief. It's part of the C-suite. And slowly but surely, by not using your voice, you've become managers. You're not chiefs. So let's bring you back. And, I know I always get excited about big ideas, a big national database, a big this, all of that. And I can't do it all. Because if I was younger right now, I'd be starting another appraisal company and put the old people together with the young people and let their brains mesh and their knowledge mesh and go. But I can't do that big idea either. I don't have enough years left. But I can do something like FIVA with the other founders that we have, which are amazing people. We got bank people that are on our board that help found it. We've got fee appraisers. It's a great little group. And that's my give back. That's my volunteerism to make FIVA be something that I can leave this industry someday going, I had a little part in that. I helped this profession get back to the glory of when it was like a North Star for me that I couldn't even imagine that as a young girl who, didn't graduate with a 4-year degree, had to take her GMAT to get an MEI designation, who was flipping pizzas.
Yes.
And I wouldn't do any of it without becoming an appraiser.
Yes.
I want to give something back. So that's my biggest thing. That's what I want to do.
I love it. I am.
Sounds so corny, doesn't it? Come on. So
I guess to some people, it very well could sound corny. I mean, let's just acknowledge that, yeah, it could sound corny. But at the same time, I mean, humorously, I mean, we really are grateful that although you live in Florida, we're so glad that FIVA doesn't stand for the Florida International Volleyball Academy. I mean, because people could get confused with you guys. But it's not corny because anyone who has ever realized that being a part of something bigger than yourself is what really provides meaning to life. And sometimes bigger than yourself simply means, maybe even going back as I'm just quickly thinking through it, of those individuals who said, oh, Brenda, I really appreciate that you're going to go out and start your own firm. But, bigger than me means I need to consistently take care of my family. And I'm not in a position to take a risk and go join a new firm. Bigger than me can be, hey, I really think there's something more than just my corporate role, but what if I could actually transform the future of property data and analysis for my, in this case, global company. Back then, they were still massive and growing. And then have an impact that far outlives me. So, yours might be FIVA. I mean, for us, we want to uplift 5,000 families out of generational poverty. When you have a big, hairy, audacious goal, it gives you meaning to get out of bed in the morning. And then the hiccups and the speed bumps and the potholes just aren't as big.
Yeah.
And it's a place to really connect with other people that don't just want to live, narrowly. And I can be very disparaging on the topic, and I won't be. But I'll just draw back to is when people have an opportunity to choose to either create something for themselves or affiliate with something that calls you to be more than who you are. It's just so rewarding, and it's challenging, but it's so rewarding to go after that and to come alongside other people that believe what you believe and want to be part of it.
Yeah. Well, and it's a two-way thing. I think that I have never been a super money motivated individual. It's probably cost me some things.
Yeah.
Probably cost me some great employees who would say, well, she's not as money motivated as she needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
But what that really means is that's not my driving force. Doesn't mean I don't want to make a lot of money. Doesn't mean that if I look at what I want to see for my company over the next 3 to 5 years, that we might be able to sell it to my employees so that, I start and Jeff start playing a lower role. But it means that that's not first. And I think that because it's not first, these other opportunities came to me that allowed me to have a great living, an incredible lifestyle and make good money. I'm also not afraid to throw all my money back into the company to see where it can grow and what it can do. So, but it's not the driver. And when I talk to a lot of people, I don't think it's the driver for most people.
It's really not.
Most successful people that by success that they're happy inside. I mean, I get to hang around with a lot of people these days who have bought and sold companies like, you and, they might sell a company for $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the first kind of people that will tell you if they're happy with themselves when that happens, they're a lot better off. And if that happens and they're not happy with themselves now, because at some point, as we know, money isn't the deciding factor on things anymore.
Yes.
And then what if that's all you have left and you don't have that sense of purpose that gets you out every day to say, I have one obligation, and that's to make today better than yesterday.
Yes.
People other than myself. And that's not corny.
No, not at all.
Every day, especially when, and how many of us want to do that every single day? Not most of us.
No, I love that. I love that. Brenda, that is such a powerful place to bring this just insightful and informative and inspiring episode to a landing spot. I am grateful for all that you've shared. And as I foreshadowed at the beginning of our episode, not only is there a lot to like, literally hit the like button, but more importantly, there are 2 or 3 people that come to mind. You're like, did you even know that she existed? Did you know anything about her company, what she's accomplished, her firms that she and Jeff operate, this organization? For so many people, there are some serious action items to take. Just pick 2. Short lists are better to execute on than long ones. But with that, thank you for your generosity. Thank you for continuing to share amongst peers the value that you get out of this, the inspiration that you come away with, and maybe just the sense of wanting to contribute to that desire to get the industry back to the glory that it previously has held, no longer just being vendors, but really being solutions architects. Brenda, I'm so grateful.
You can ask you one question as we close.
I don't know. I don't do a lot of questions here. Let's give it a shot, Brenda.
How do I get that hair that you have, Michael?
Oh my goodness. You know what? We can work on this. I can help you with that. That's not part of the plan, but we can, grow out every so often. And then we do donate it as well. So you let me know what you need, Brenda. Love it. All right. Well, we're going to bring this episode to a close. Thank you so much, friends, peers, those that we haven't met and those that we have. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you for joining us in uncovering how technology is reshaping the landscape of real estate valuation and appraisal. Would you do a favor for someone you may never meet to influence a future that is worth building? Please scroll down and like this podcast and share your comments. Stay engaged with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and your favorite podcast platforms to catch every moment of innovation and expertise shared. Got an idea or suggestion? Share your thoughts and questions with us. Let's continue to grow together, embracing the tech evolution that is enhancing our industry's effectiveness and efficiency. Until next time, remember, in the fast-evolving world of real estate and technology, being a part of the change is what sets you apart. Keep creating the future by striving for excellence and innovation.